All right, we are back on episode 59 of the We All Serve
59.
podcast. I know,
Jeez.
59, it's
Better
crazy.
episode count or my age? I'm not sure. It's all kind of
Y-
blurs in together.
you know what? We're getting old. We're maturing together. Well, I can't say that. I don't know about
No, you
that. I
can't.
don't know. Yeah. But anyway, people continue to stick around to want to have some fun conversations with us. So no complaints. It's always fun. Last
Yes.
week was indeed very, very interesting, a fun conversation with the Assistant Adjutant General from the great state
Michigan.
of Michigan.
Yeah.
Really, really fun conversation. Great, got some great feedback on that. And yeah, just everybody that comes on, they really highlight just leadership and service. And really enjoyed that conversation. And he is, I mean, man, he is busy. He's got two really, really
That's a high
uh,
octane dude.
high octane indeed. But today we're going to talk about a man that also lives and breathes service. But before we jump into our episode and into our conversation with the one and only Jim Bland, Angel, you are doing well, my friend.
Yeah, yeah. Things are getting better, ready to for the holidays and to spend time with family and visit with folks. So pretty excited. I hope I get to see you before you jet out of town.
We will talk because I am hoping to get in for like all of like 24 hours or something, and I made this realization that there is only one of me, and there's more people on the family side to say goodbye to. So it's more expensive for them to come to me than for me to come to them. So just that,
Really?
well,
Can't you
yeah.
just hold up? I mean, that's like the Puerto Rican way to do it. You just hold up at your grandma's house, and everybody comes from out of town to visit you.
I would like that. I would like that. That would be very nice. Please teach the Jewish crowd that method. I would appreciate it.
Well, I will.
All right. Well, before we jump in, Angel, how can people find out about episodes?
They need to like, subscribe, share, phone a friend, get a carrier pigeon, bang a drum, whatever they can do. But go online, Google "We All Serve," and it'll come right up, and you'll see not just this episode and the episodes coming up, but also previous episodes, which are funny to listen to. And if you watch the evolution of the show, it's really just kind of start taking its own life.
I was thinking we should rename the show to Two Bald Guys and a Servant Leader.
We should be.
Yeah,
That should be. But then we would it'd be redundant because we're also servant leaders. So
that's true. That is true. I just thought of that as I shouldn't really speak as I'm thinking. It's really a dangerous habit. But okay, we've got a
you don't
lot
want to be
more.
me. You don't want to be me, man. It's not a destination wedding.
Well, we've got more important things to talk about, so I'm going to bring in the one and only Jim Bland. Jim, and I've heard Jim's name forever. Believe it or not, this is actually the first time that we are actually on camera together. Although we've had some conversations, and uh, Jim has spent approximately 27 years. I don't know how that's possible because you don't look like you've been doing that for 27 years, but of management, investments, mergers, acquisitions, and leadership experience. Began his career as a field artillery officer in the United States Army. He's also worked for corporations such as Ernst& Young, HSBC North America. He's currently an investment partner at NextGen Growth Partners, a growth-oriented private equity firm making investments in the lower end of the middle market. That's tongue twister over there. He also serves as a civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army. And if you don't know what that is, we are going to talk all about it today for the great state of Illinois, which, by the way, carries a 3-star protocol rank. And as a trustee, I should probably put up the flag. We should put up the 3-star flag over there. But
Does
he's
he have a coin?
also,
I just want to know if he has a coin. That's all.
you really want a
Pretty
coin,
simple
don't you?
guy.
You
Yeah.
got my flag in the background.
I
We
do.
do, we do. Oh, it is there. It's just so small because Angel is, at least on my screen, stuck in the middle. I mean, if we move Angel over, then we'll get your full flag. But Jim is
That flag is
also
only cool until December 11th, and then we got to scrap about
Jim is also a
it.
trustee for a Chicago suburb of approximately 50,000 residents, something that he and I talked about local government. And over Jim's career, he has served on nearly 20 private company, nonprofit, and government boards. He has a Bachelor's of Science degree from the United States Military Academy, and I've got to ask the question soon of whether he's wearing that ring, and an MBA in finance from the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business. Jim is happily married and has 2 terrific children. Without further ado, again, welcome Jim Bland to We All Serve.
Thank you, gentlemen. Real pleasure to be here. It's a thrill.
Angel, take
Ple-
it away.
Pleasure's ours. It was funny because we saw, and I'm just gonna throw it out there. You were highlighted as in Crane's 40 under 40. I'm like, geez, how the heck did this guy in here? How did what 40? How Jim? Oh my God! And then I go on LinkedIn. I'm like, look, I'm not even connected with Jim. Oh my God, what's going on here?
But we're not connected?
We are now. We are
Oh,
now.
all
I was
right.
like, oh my God, my buddy Jim. I see, but it's so great, and thank you for coming on and seeing
Thank
all the things
you.
that you did. Now, did I hear you were at EY for a while?
Yeah, I worked at E&Y. That was actually my first job out of the Army. I was a strategy consultant, and my boss at the time actually, always seems to happen this way. My first boss was Sam Hughes, who was a prior vet and 82nd Airborne guy. So, he saw this hapless soul coming in there, only veteran in the pool of analysts, and he basically took me under his wing, and I started working on all of his projects. So Sam's still at E&Y, bit of a lifer, but
Well, he's a
uh,
big deal.
yeah, no, he's done well, and but yeah, it seems like that's the evolution of my career. Is it always comes back around to the Army? But yeah, love
How?
my time at E&Y.
Yeah, I'm there now. And how
Oh,
did you? I mean, yeah, and we got a lot of catching up to do, but
yeah.
how was that transition from being a field artillery officer to being a consultant? Because I'm assuming you didn't go to booth right away.
No, no.
So you
It
went
was
straight from West Point, and then because we were just screening interview and looking at resumes with guys just like Naval Academy, West Point, and stuff like that. And I'm like, wow, these guys are all rock stars. So you went right out of the Army into strategy consulting, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So at the time, E&Y had started up a strategy consulting group. It was called SAS, Strategic Advisory Services. Eventually got sold to Capgemini. And so
It didn't turn into Parthenon.
yeah, I guess probably evolved into that. But Capgemini bought SAS. And so the way I got there was really just through networking. I knew I wanted to go into business, but coming out of the Army, I didn't really know what to do. I was very fortunate that one of my mentors was my cousin who preceded me. I had two cousins that went to West Point and preceded me there. One is still active duty. He's a colonel, foreign area officer. He was in Indonesia. Now he's in Hawaii. But
That's a
his
sweet job.
yeah. Well, I don't know about Indonesia, but
No, no, no. Hawaii is.
but his brother, his older brother, kind of guided me to consulting. He said, it was just going to be a great place to cut my teeth and learn about business problems, solve problems, see different industries. And so I really credit him for that advice. And so I ended up meeting a Naval Academy guy at the time, just through emailing and networking, Dwight Fontilla. And Dwight was the one that brought me in. And, I went through the multiple rounds of interviews, as these consulting firms put you through. And was fortunate enough to be in, I guess, one of the first analyst class in that strategy group.
Wow.
So networking, and utilizing the veteran component is the way I got there, because there was there were no recruiters coming after me as an artillery officer coming out of the Army. So I had to do it the old
Yeah,
fashioned way.
it's funny like that, huh? Yep. What's funny is one of our guests, former guest, David Rader. I don't know if you know David.
No.
Well, of course you do, Shalom. Former infantry guy, got out of the Army, went to law school. Did his undergrad, went to law school, got a master's in finance, and always over at Kellogg, and he's deputy SecDef for foreign investments and stuff.
Oh,
And
is
I'm
that
like,
right? Wow.
and before that, he was with EY, so he's the guy that grabbed me and brought me over. So when
Oh,
you're saying about networking and fostering relationships and not being a transactional kind of person, but someone that actually wants to learn and it's such a big deal. I mean, you can't
totally.
overstate that.
Totally. Yeah, networking is so critical. And, it's not something that I would say that JMOs, military guys, are that good at, because you're mission oriented and you got your head down, and which is what you need to do when you're in uniform. But sometimes you got to pick your head up and just build those professional networks and relationships. So that's one of the things that I try to tell vets is really to invest in other people and try to help people. Comes back in droves,
Tenfold, yeah.
And I know that you're doing that right now, obviously in your role as a CASA, and we're going to get there. But I like to start at the very beginning, or as close to the beginning as I can. So
Isn't
you
that Sound of
mentioned,
Music? Start from
hey,
the
I absolutely, it's very, very best place to start for sure. But you
Kind of looks
mentioned
like Jody Andrews, doesn't he?
100%, 100%. But you mentioned, family in the military and West Point, and your battle buddies must be very proud of you. Well, and you and I talked, and you mentioned that a bunch of your buddies are now at the rank of '06 at Colonel,
Yeah.
and there you are with the 3-star protocol. You sort of you got them beat. But coming in, why did you go to West Point? Why did you decide to make a life of military?
Yeah, my father was a Chicago cop, so so service was always in my house. I saw, my dad worked some really tough jobs, and what I'll say is I never served and saw, um, you know, a gun fired in anger at me, and my father has, and so and I saw that at a very young age. And so that I think left an impression. And then having my two cousins go on to West Point, um, I don't want to say that my father pushed me into it, but he definitely wanted me to set my horizons, to set my sights high. And seeing my two cousins go before me, I felt like that was achievable. And so I was very fortunate to have some really great role models just within my family, being my father and my two cousins. And I've, my uncle served in the Marines, and I have another cousin that served in the Rangers. So, service has been in my family, at least one generation apart. For me, I can't go all the way back. I don't know about, prior generations, but, near and dear to our heart. And so that was probably the impetus, was my father for wanting to serve.
And I know you served as a field artillery officer, and you retired, if I'm not, or you left that phase of service. And I'm going to emphasize that because you've
Yeah,
continued to serve. You've left that phase of service as a at the rank of captain, if I understand.
that's
So
right.
tell us about your. I always ask this question of our guests, but best friend, greatest mentor, and sort of highlight of your time in uniform.
Yeah, I mean, I had so many. It's hard to really come up with any one. I think of two that come right to mind. Number one was my tactical officer at West Point, my junior and senior year, Cowan first year. I was a company honor rep, and I didn't know what I wanted to do in the Army. To be very honest with you, it wasn't until I met Steve Heidecker, who was my tactical officer at the time. I guess he was a major. That he was an artillery officer, and I don't know what he saw in me, but he started to really tell me a lot about the artillery, and he thought I'd be a successful artilleryman. So he was the one that probably set this, laid the seed there for being an artilleryman. And then the second person who I always looked up to and still do to this day is Chris Gibson. He was a professor of mine. Chris was the one that did my swearing in oath ceremony at West Point. He was a professor of mine, and he ended up becoming an '06 in the Army, served tours in Iraq with the 82nd. He talked about when he was a professor that he wanted to run for Congress, and he actually did. He served as a congressman from New York for 3 terms, and he termed himself out. He when he was running, he said he would only serve 3 years or 3
Terms.
terms, and he did. Man of his word, and that now he's the professor, or he's the president of Siena College. So kind of that soldier scholar sort of person. And I think that was when I was at West Point, I really looked up to soldier scholars, and Chris Gibson kind of epitomized that in my mind.
Such an amazing experience, and I mean, I have a lot of friends that I'm serving with now that I like to rib about their West Point experience, and they've got but the close knit relationships and the both with again battle buddies or with leaders. It changes them for life. And Angel, just hang on one more second, and then I'll turn it back over to you. I just got to squeeze this all out over here.
No,
So,
go. We good.
no,
We good.
I mean, I think it's awesome.
I'm just taking notes down.
No, it's amazing, and it's so obviously amazing time in uniform, and 6 years, and so I have to ask, why did you get out?
Oh, I ended up getting out mostly because whoa, I got out because I wanted to go into business. I think it was there was just I had served, and I knew that I could continue to serve. I mean, at West Point, we talk about a lifetime of service to the nation. And I knew that it didn't have to always be in uniform. At some point in the Army, you get out, right? Like it's so I had hit my time, went to Booth. I served in the reserve and in the reserve forces, and actually I served in all three components, which has been a great experience and brings a lot of color to my CASA role. But I went back to Booth, and it was just the right time. I was coming out of business school. I had joined a private equity firm that was small, that ultimately couldn't deal with me being deployed. In a small firm, when you're in private equity, our fund lives are 5 years. So if you get deployed for 1 year, you're missing 20% of the investment life. That's important. And you're also leaving other people to kind of carry your weight.
Bag, yeah.
Yeah. And so, it was kind of all of that wrapped up into, time to leave uniform, but continue to serve. And I was fortunate to be able to join the West Point board. So I've always been in some capacity prior to my CASA time serving West Point. To your point, Shalom, about just tight knit. I was a recruiter in the city for West Point. We call them Malos. And I had the opportunity to serve 12 years in some capacity on the West Point board. So, I've always continued to serve my alma mater, and yes, very, very tight knit. I just today emailed with one classmate and talked on the phone with another. So we're very tight, as and you've experienced.
I can't swing a cat and not hit 10 of you guys during the day. I'm not lying. Cord Harris. I talked to Cord Harris, Alex Panosian, and you today. And I'm like, dude, I can't get away from these guys. It's crazy. And they're all good dudes. I mean, I'm like,
yeah, we're not that bad.
No. You're my brothers, man. But that lends me to my question was, what made you want to go PE? Because, I mean, for most, like, when I was when I was active duty, I had someone said, hey, man, you want to go run a private equity firm? I'd be like, yeah, what the hell's that? And I wouldn't have known. Did you know when you were in the Army what a PE firm was?
No, but it's interesting when you're a junior at West Point, you get what's called a cow loan. It's like a low interest loan that you can get, and most cadets will buy a car with it. I mean, that's really kind of the idea behind it. You don't have to. I ended up taking that money. It was about 3% interest, and I invested it. And I invested in a company called Dell. This was back in 95, 96. So it's the exact opposite thing they tell you to do in business school, right? You build a portfolio, invest in index funds, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? So, but
use debt to build equity is what I heard.
Yeah, that's what I did. And
essentially, yeah, I mean,
so that really kind of fostered what I would say is my love of investing. And the thing that I love about private equity is really working with business owners. These are folks, great Americans. Usually, I mean, I haven't met a business owner that isn't patriotic and doesn't love this country, right? Because the country's given so much to them.
Opportunities. Yeah, absolutely.
Completely. And so you're working with folks that have taken risk and built a business. And where we come in is we help to grow it. Sometimes it's folks that want to take, as we say, chips off the table. They've grown it to a point where they're kind of done taking risk. They're comfortable, but they want to see
Or they're
their
at
baby.
they're at their own capacity. I mean, some
Right.
people are just
Or they're at an
this is as high
age.
you're ever going to be. Yeah.
Yeah, they're at an age that
Yeah.
they don't have a transition plan. So we solve many problems for these business owners, but ultimately, it's investing. It's just investing in the private markets, and so I've just always had a love of investing, and so but really what the tie into private equity is working alongside these business owners. They're different stages in private equity, and we are the first institutional capital into lower middle market companies. So we don't buy from other private equity firms. We literally buy from owners, founders, multi-generational owners, and those are the folks that kind of light my fire. I mean, I love working with these folks.
Because it's founder owner is what it is.
Founder owner, yeah. It's just they took the risk. They
built
have
the
a
country.
vision.
Those people built this country.
Totally. Yeah. And that's where most of the jobs are in this country, right? It's not the Fortune 500 companies. It's the small, medium-sized businesses in this country.
So, Jim, you mentioned the chronology of the transition of again coming to the Army and then continuing on. I have to ask about the leadership and the skills. I mean, what did the Army do for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question for me is, what did the Army not do for me? I mean, everything has kind of always tied into the Army in some way. Yeah, I mean, leadership is obviously the greatest skill that I received. I would also just say that it's being a servant leader. What I try to do is even in my role at NGP is it's not about the title or the ego. It's about helping somebody. In many cases, we're buying companies and we're putting in first time owners. So think about that. We're transitioning from a founder and we're putting in a first time CEO, and these CEOs are in the search for a business within kind of their strike zone. Within their lane, and so there's so many dreams that are being achieved here, as I like to think about it. And so my role as an investment partner is to enable that process. So we're looking for great companies, we're looking for great CEO leaders to put into these
Alignment, proper
companies,
alignment all the way
proper
across.
alignment.
Yeah.
And then the transaction, right? Making sure that we're doing the right thing for our investors. I'm a fiduciary at the end of the day. So, just enabling that transaction, because that's where, 17 years of doing this, that's what I know how to do. And then sitting on the boards and helping those leaders grow those businesses, right? And that means hiring people, putting the right butts in seats, so it all comes back to leadership, and I just try to lead by example and be a servant leader, really. And I learned that in the Army, and I learned that from other folks, honestly, mostly from my NCOs. That's as much as I've had great commanders and great professors and whatnot. I mean, I learned most of these skills from my non-coms.
That's great. What do you think is one of the leadership? Well, actually, you kind of answered it already, so I'll just go on to the next question. Um, So this role with the Secretary of the Army is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
I
great.
mean, when I met you, I think you were in
Just started.
in that position. You had just
Yeah,
started. I
I
remember,
think so. Yeah.
and when you say you like low ego, humble, you were super and I'm like, you're what? Yeah, I work for the Secretary of the Army. I'm assistant. And I was like, what? Okay, hi. And
Yeah.
I mean, since assuming that role, what are some of the things you've been passionate about achieving and sought to accomplish for your army, for our army?
Yeah, so I work really hand in glove with our recruiting battalion. I mean that's um, the secretary always defines, and we have a new secretary, Christine Wermuth, first female secretary of the army in the nation's history, and so she's ultimately kept the same priorities as the prior couple secretaries, McCarthy, Esper, and Fanning. And so the three priorities that she defines for us is recruiting, what we call soldier for life, or really just kind of veterans causes, veterans hiring, um, and then the third is the National Guard, which is our local land component, right? So the Army National Guard. So really just being that bridge between the state and the Pentagon, the Adjutant General. You mentioned the assistant from Michigan. So those are the three kind of priorities that she's defined. But we also serve as advisors to her on, the civilian aides. There's about 100, over 100 in the nation, right? And we come from all different backgrounds: medicine, law. We've got an astronaut, a lot of business folks, academics, educators. So, she's got this rich talent pool at her.
It's a think tank, is what it is.
Yeah. And so, the prior Secretary McCarthy, definitely leveraged that. For example, the CASA down in Central Texas. I mean, he's a tech genius. And he's there with Futures Command, and so I know that he was really highly leveraged when they were thinking through kind of Futures Command, and he's been very critical with the software factory down in Austin. So you've got this kind of really talented group of people, and so the secretary can kind of leverage those resources in various different ways. So there's always that local mission or that state mission, but there's also these kind of ad hoc sort of these ad hoc roles that you can get pulled into.
Yeah, like there's a major, like for example, and I'll just throw the Vanessa Guillen thing out there.
Right.
We have this issue, and they bring all these thought leaders that are assistants to the army, saying, "How are we going to solve this problem? Let's give
Right.
Secretary Austin everything we need. Let's go ahead and get behind him and give him a solution that's going to work." Instead of, "Oh, let me reach over here and see what I can find in my underneath my chair." No, that
Yep.
never happens. It's all the
So
thought leaders that you reach out to.
yeah. So Secretary McCarthy at the time pulled together four very influential CASAs to do a roundtable, like just to get on the phone with him and talk through the four Latino CASAs. One of them was an elected official. He was mayor of a mid-sized city in California. So he brought these four individuals. I think the CASA from Puerto Rico as well, and brought these four individuals together to be a sounding board and to really be involved in this process and to help him think through it. So you're with Vanessa. You're defining kind of how you have this resource and how they can be useful to the secretary.
Yeah, and I mean, you're again being modest and humble, but the I know the enormous hours that are put in. And I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day. The we are an all volunteer army, and that support of on the recruiting side is critical because young men and women these days. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, there's a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of reasons why not to join the military, whether it's the Navy like Angel or the Army, or now, we continue to, the needs have not gone away, and the support on the recruiting side is critical. And especially you mentioned the recruiting battalion, right in Chicago. Chicago is a very big city. It's a very big city, and it's a very challenging competitive market for sure. And so, I mean, I watch from a distance, even though I'm, right now a little bit long distance. I've seen the hard work that the recruiters put in, and a shout out to Captain Nick Bonavia and First Sergeant Troy Wooten in the Glenview Recruiting Company, and my very, very dear friend, now Major Joe Wall, who's the S3 of the Chicago Recruiting Battalion, who was the one that was at age 29. He was the one that told me, "Hey, Scott, maybe you should." We don't just need the 18-year-olds.
After this, I'm gonna have to talk with that guy.
Yeah. No, but I mean, they are recruiting is a tough mission, and I think that the role of the CASA is critical in providing the policy guidance, but also the on the ground connections. There's nobody that does it better than you, Jim, which is great. So it's not all glamour. It's not just the flag behind you. It's really, I know you spend a lot of time working on the ground. So tell our listeners what, for many that are either prior service, have served in uniform, or folks that I know everybody that tunes into this podcast that supports service. What can they do? How can they support the role of the CASA, and how can they support, even if they don't put the uniform on, as we always say on the show, how can they all serve?
Yeah. So certainly from regardless of what service you've you've been a part of, if you're listening,
go Army, beat Navy. Go ahead.
go Army, beat Navy. I mean, we should all be recruiters. I mean, if you see a young man or woman who has a ton of potential, I mean, tell them about the opportunities in the Army. We in the Army specifically, we have nearly 200 MOSs. That's 200 different types of jobs. So you don't have to be an airborne infantryman. I often like to talk about the Army band. Every installation has a band. So if your talent is music, you can actually have a pretty darn good paying job and a pretty good life being a musician in the Army or Navy, right? And so, that's what I just try to tell people is like, we can all be recruiters. If you've served, and you should be proud of that. My guess is that most of your listeners' lives are better because they've served, whether it be the skill sets that they attained or the benefits, whether it be GI Bill, whatever. So, yeah, that's what I would say. And then just in general, find a cause that you're really passionate about and lean into it, whether it be, doing the work or being on a board. Boards tend to be a little bit more fundraising focused. So if you really want to just be in the weeds and do the work, sign up for a nonprofit and get involved. I would also say that there's ways, there's countless ways you can be involved in your community through various boards and commissions, volunteering within your community. So a lot of people think that you have to, serve this higher cause. Obviously the Army, Navy, any of the services are that, right? It's this kind of very high ambition sort of cause. But, you can serve in your community. I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road, and make your community a better place. Whether it be, through in Glenview, we have a very active outreach to through our youth services. And, as affluent as some of these suburbs are up in the northern suburbs, there are a lot of people that are not well off. And they're there right in front of your eyes. And you just got to, kind of ask the question and do the work and find the organization and then volunteer, so many countless ways to serve. But if you're passionate about the service you were in, I say you're a recruiter. Tell the story. of the Navy or the Air Force or the Army.
Do you, as part of your role, do you speak to young men and women about or interview them or to help prep them for interviews with West Point?
I used to do that. I haven't done that here in Chicago. I guess I did it years ago for Judy Biggert, and I've done it out in Colorado. So I have served on these boards, but not recently. I'm still involved in recruiting. I see it at the state level, and where I sit, I have this kind of different perch, and so I'm trying to ensure that we're not only sending great men and women to West Point, but if you're not able to go to West Point, I'm trying to think holistically about the Army, and are we getting them scholarships, ROTC, or are they better served to enlist and come in through a different nomination channel through the active channel? So there's multiple pathways to West
From
Point.
within, yeah.
So I just try to think holistically
Sure.
about the problem now, given my position.
It sounds like you've really opened up your aperture, and so you started out kind of a West Point there, kind of like, whoa, let's look at the whole and a little bit of everybody here. So
That's exactly
that's kind of
right.
what I hear. Yeah,
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 that's
that makes
exactly
total
right.
sense.
And it's been great because when you're an artilleryman, you just know the 13 series, right? And you know a little bit about
No,
11, and
I
you
am
know a
not
little
artillery. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
the 13 MOS, and so
Oh,
now
okay.
I get to see everything, and it's just so cool. And I love the Army even more because I get to talk about the cyber needs and the band and 11 Bravos, the infantry guys, right? So it's so cool. I just love it.
It's just incredible. And I really only have one more question. The last spoke of the Jim Bland wheel over here, if you will. We've talked about your service. We've talked about your a bit of your business life. We've talked a little bit about your role as CASA. But I know you are also a local village trustee, which is very, very near and dear to my heart because I think that's where
I
a
know.
lot of the action happens. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because the way I see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, all of these areas, they all sort of tie into each other. I mean, through your role in Glenview, you're able to actually create that support for service. And I say this all the time, and Angel and I, we talk about this endlessly. You don't need to put the uniform on, as you were
No.
just saying a moment ago. Is bottom line, create that culture of service. So tell us what life is like as a village trustee.
Well, it's very different than I expected. Really, it's a thankless job, to be perfectly honest with you. As much as being a CASA is something that there is a lot of appreciation for, I would say, and it comes with a lot of of benefits, right? Like I look at my municipal position, there's none of that. It's literally you're conducting the business of the village is really what it is. So it's very much in line with my background, which is business. It's just on the municipal side. And
So let me get this straight. You walk in for a cup of coffee to the local Starbucks, and you're immediately hounded by why is there a pothole?
yes. So you get a lot of those sort of issues that and it's interesting because at the end of the day, I'm a board member just like I am in my companies. And so we hire the best talent in Glenview, and I truly believe that. So it's the staff that carries out these day-to-day functions, and we're there to set policy essentially and to support them, right, and hold them accountable. But because we are at the end of the day serving the citizens. But it is definitely a thankless job. What I would say is that there's 6 trustees in Glenview and one village president who's effectively our mayor, and we're all pretty tight. And it's you know it's like another team, right? And I want to support them. They support us. We don't always agree on things, and I think that's good and healthy. But ultimately, we support each other because it is a bit of a thankless job.
It is a thankless job, and I've had the privilege of working. Where is Glenview over by Naperville or out by Aurora or anything like that? No, or is it up north?
Near Skokie.
Oh, you're up by Skokie. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Uh,
the cool
that must be
kids.
the I must be the other
exactly.
Glen.
No,
Um,
it's there's a lot, and I by the way, Chuck Gittles and I are very good friends.
yeah,
Yeah,
great
Chuck and I have
guy.
known each other for a long time. Great guy. So you've got a great team, and I've been fortunate to work closely as you know, involved in economic development and all. You're
Yeah,
making me jealous, Jim. I miss it. I miss it, and that's I was fortunate to be involved during actually through all of 2020. I served as chair of the regional COVID recovery task force, and so I miss it. But certainly, service continues on every level, and you know that's something that all
yeah.
three of us believe in, and I know that we advocate for. So, Jim, I want to give you the final comments over here. Are there anything else that we missed, or any organizations you want to give a shout out to?
Well, the only one from a serving perspective, I've been affiliated with Boys Hope, Girls Hope at Loyola, and it's a really wonderful organization. I was a mentor to a young man. What they do is they lift high potential men and women out of the inner city, and they bring them into the Loyola environment, Loyola Academy here it's in Wilmette, and they house them in Evanston. There's 3 homes, 2 for boys and 1 for girls, and it's just an exceptional program to allow these young men and women to really flourish in an environment that really is amazing. I mean, Loyola is one of the top high schools, I think, in the state, in the city for sure. And so, that's an organization that I've mentored young men, and then when they go off to college and they receive financial assistance through the organization. So I've just seen this organization transform lives, and as I like to think about it from an educational perspective, you touch one life, and you will effectively touch generations. So that's how I think about Boys Hope, Girls Hope, is that it's really kind of a generational sort of program. And so, yeah. And of course, Army and all the other stuff, but that's the nonprofit that is kind of nearest and dearest to my heart recently.
Well, Jim, I'll wrap it up if that's okay with you, Shalom. And I just want to thank you for coming on the cast. And it's good to see my buddy again after a couple of years. And
Post
I just,
COVID.
yeah, you know what? I just think that when I think about you and seeing your name on the Cranes list, and congrats again, that's definitely hard earned and well deserved. And I think to myself, I look at this guy and he knows that he's talented, and he knows he's been gifted and blessed with so many opportunities and so many people pulling for him, and you know what, instead of being cocky and arrogant about it, he's giving back and he's using his tools and his talent to help those around him in his community and really be vested. And I want to thank you for that, because that's really unique and it shows character, and I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Angel. I mean, it's just a blessing, I mean, from much is given, much is expected, and I've been given a lot, and I try to give back, and it's I hope to just touch people's lives, and I think about it generationally, right? So if you're impacting one person's life, that's multi-generational. It's just not one person's life.
That's right.
Nope.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your continued service. Thanks for your continued leadership, both at the local and, frankly, at the national level. Just really, really awesome to have you on and to share. I will say that we have had 1 and 2 stars, but now I think we can officially say that we've had somebody at the 3-star level on the cast as well. So thank you for helping us get to that point. No, but to all of our listeners, a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for spending the night with us. It's
And thank you for those who are standing the watch so we can be here
Absolutely.
And Shalom, stand
Thank
there
you,
watching,
Shalom.
being out there, and thank you, so we can enjoy a beer and to argue and fight with our families like we love to do,
Absolutely.
and
No, absolutely.
watch a
Thank you
drunk
to everyone.
uncle say bad words.
We know that that's going to happen at many dinner tables around the world. But truly, truly, thank you. And we've got some good conversations lined up as we wrap up this year. So make sure you subscribe, as Angel said earlier. Subscribe, rate, review, and share. And again, a happy Thanksgiving. And again, to our wonderful guest tonight, Jim Bland. Thank you so much for joining.